One of the oldest characters in Simpsons history, both in the show and outside of the show, is Springfield's Kenny, Hans Moleman. Moleman has been around since the Tracey Ullman shorts, but it isn't until season 4 where his most common joke came about. In most of Moleman's appearances, he's either gravely injured or just dies. So that made us ask one very important question. Which of these deaths have been the most gruesome? I'm Kifinosi with Wicked Binge, and this is Hans Moleman Deaths. Gruesome to most gruesome. A couple of rules are needed for this list if we're going to go forward. Firstly, no off-screen deaths. It either needs to be shown on screen or heavily implied, where Hans is put in a situation that he can't escape from. Secondly, Moleman has to be human for these deaths, so both Demon Moleman and Dinosaur Moleman from Treehouse of Horror don't count. Finally, kills that happen in Treehouse of Horror and couch gags are up for the running. With our rules out of the way, we move into our first category of the list, organ failure. The first and least gruesome death in the series for Moleman is in the episode Ha Ha Land. This season 29 episode, featuring Ed Sheeran, starts with a song about how bad Springfield is in the middle of a traffic jam. In this traffic jam is none other than Hans Moleman on his way to his dialysis treatment. Well, with everyone singing and dancing, he ends up late to this treatment. So, having missed his dialysis treatment, he seems to have kidney failure of some kind, leaving him to die in the middle of a traffic jam. However, a slightly more gruesome death of this style is in $1 Million AB, with Springfield getting a new football team and the commissioner of the Pro Football League coming to town. Springfield has been repainted and recolored, but prior to that, we learn that Springfield leads the nation in heart attacks, probably Homer's fault, and we see Moleman have a fatal heart attack, falling to the ground. We consider heart attacks as more gruesome than kidney failure due to the fact that heart disease can cause kidney failure at times. The most gruesome death in this category is in the episode A Test Before Trying. Moleman is in the hospital for unknown reasons, and Dr. Hibbert says he needs to save electricity. So naturally, they decide to unplug Moleman and cut off his life support. He asks if he has a say in this, but his son just tells them that it's air escaping and his heart stops when the life support's unplugged. We consider this more gruesome because his family is the one causing his heart to stop, rather than it being a sudden onset heart attack. After his organs have failed him, the next most gruesome way he can die is in the next category, the Fallers. The least gruesome death in this category is in CE. While Homer and Lisa try to take over the power plant from Mr. Burns, Moleman is killed once more. Inside an office and annoying the people around him, he's thrown out of a window. Now, while the window seems to be ground level, his scream shows that he fell for a while, and likely to his death. We don't see him hit the ground, but it is safe to assume he dies from this. Or the broken glass in him could do the trick. The next death in this category is in Daticus Finch. At Shauna Chalmers' bat mitzvah, Bart switches everyone's keys so no one can leave. However, Kent Brockman laughs because he has an app that will bring his car to him, and the car does come backing up and hitting Moleman. This causes Moleman to be sent flying off into the distance. Now, he is alive when he's hit by the car, so he definitely does die from the fall. A similar style of death is in the intro to Treehouse of Horror 31. After a political joke about the 2020 election, the world is literally on fire and giant robots modeled after Ed 209 from RoboCop are roaming around. Moleman walks up to one and the robot kicks him, sending him flying and yelling about regretting his vote.
That's what I get for voting for Kanye!
Like the previous, he dies from the fall and not from the initial hit. We consider this more gruesome than the previous because he is kicked by a giant robot instead of being hit by a car. The most gruesome death in this category is in the episode The Dope Show Network. Homer is driving around in his car while on the phone, and meanwhile Moleman is crossing the street while on the phone. With both of them distracted, Homer strikes Moleman and sends him flying through the air. We actually do see him slam against the ground, his glasses get broken, and he's left in a bizarre pose. This is why this one's considered the most gruesome of the Fallers, because we actually see him crash against the ground. A recognizable category for Simpsons fans is when Moleman dies from suffocation, choking, or other forms of asphyxiation. Next is choked up. The least gruesome death in this category is in the episode Children of a Lesser Clod. When Homer injures himself playing basketball, he's got to take care of Rod and Todd while Ned is out. Ned originally wants Marge to do so, but she's at a morgue identifying a body. And the body is Hans Moleman, who is very much alive. The mortician, however, doesn't care and leaves him locked up to suffocate to death.
That's just gas escaping.
We consider this the least gruesome because we don't see what happens, but it's a safe assumption. Now, a very similar death is in the episode Mother Simpson. With Homer supposedly dead, his supposedly dead mother, Mona Simpson, comes to visit his grave. Homer is currently alive and lying in his grave after falling in. Meanwhile, the gravedigger says he never buries anyone alive, causing Moleman to peek out and complain, only to be subsequently buried alive. We count this as more gruesome because it's easier to confirm that he does indeed die here from being buried alive. The next death in this section happens in The Departed. Marge has grown tired from looking after the kids, and while doing this, she accidentally hits Moleman's car. This causes them to hit something and his airbag to deploy, and with how close he was sitting to the wheel, the airbag covers most of his body. It pushes him up against the seat of the car and slowly suffocates him to death. The section Connie Appleseed from the episode Simpsons Tall Tales is next on our list. With the settlers killing large groups of buffalo, Connie tells them that it will cause problems in the future and tries to get them to eat apples. The group leaves her behind alongside Hans Moleman, who is stuck in quicksand, and since no one saves him, he slowly but surely suffocates in the quicksand. We consider this more gruesome because everyone leaves him behind, even though he's asking for help, and a slow death surely follows. However, the most gruesome death in this section belongs to the Joy of Sect. When a cult comes to town and scams almost everyone out of their money, Reverend Lovejoy and Marge try to take it down. While Marge tries to escape, she's chased by a rover balloon that catches Moleman. This balloon shrinks in and suffocates him slowly, pushing his face against it in a creepy way. That moment where we see his face pressed through the plastic is what really makes this the most gruesome death of this section. Similar to strangulation, the next category is drowned out, where Moleman dies from being submerged in a large body of liquid, usually water. The less gruesome death in this category is from Gorillas on the Mast. When Homer buys a boat after a lifelong dream, he realizes that owning a boat is not all it's cracked up to be. Moleman is subsequently on a surfboard that's broken by Maggie, and he slowly sinks into the ocean, slowly drowning to death. Drowning is definitely not fun, and drowning in the ocean is absolutely up there, but it's not as gruesome as this next one. The more gruesome death in this category is from My Pods and Broomsticks. When Bart makes friends with a Muslim boy at school, Homer grows paranoid that his father is a terrorist. This causes him to accidentally blow up a bridge that leads to the Duff factory. One of the drivers to this factory was Hans Moleman, and he falls into the river. Homer dives in and saves the beer, leaving Moleman to drown to death. This is more gruesome simply because he could have been saved easily, but was left there to die by Homer. The category with the most Moleman deaths is this next one, non-romantic crushes, where Moleman is crushed by something, usually from above, such as being run over. The least gruesome death actually comes from the Simpsons movie. While Homer is trying to dump Plopper's silo in the lake after it had been banned by the city, many signs and barriers had been put up around it. Homer, of course, ignores all of these, and while going to dump the silo, he runs over and seemingly kills Moleman, completely ignoring him. This is the least gruesome simply due to the fact that it's straight up played mostly for laughs, rather than being a sad or gruesome moment. Next up on our list is from the section The Fourth Thursday After Tomorrow, from the episode Thanksgiving of Horror. Homer orders an AI that's stylized after Marge to cook Thanksgiving dinner in her place. We briefly get to see Hans Moleman walking down the street, where he's swiftly run over by an automated pizza delivery car. Much like the previous, this is played mostly for laughs, but at least we get to watch the whole action from a third-person perspective, making it slightly more gruesome. The next death on the list is from the Fool Monty. When a fake disease is created, Mr. Burns cuts the line for the required vaccine by driving through a crowd. In this crowd is none other than Hans Moleman, who is quickly run over by Smithers so that Burns could get all the doses necessary. This one's not really played for laughs, and therefore we consider it a bit more gruesome. Now we have the only death from a couch gag, specifically from Exit Through the Quickie Mart. In a parody of the Game of Thrones Thrones intro, Springfield's brought to life through a multitude of golden gears. One of the people brought to life is Moleman, who is quickly killed by the giant Lard Lad statue. The statue of Lard Lad comes to life and rolls his giant donut along the ground, which runs over and crushes Moleman while rolling him away. We now get away from the running over deaths as we talk about the man who grew too much. While selling porcelain figures in the town square, Sideshow Bob drops a cinder block from high above that quickly crushes Moleman under its weight. However, because it doesn't cover his entire body when it crushes him, it's considered less gruesome than other deaths. A similar one, though, is from the Squirt and the Whale. After a whale ends up beached on the beach of Springfield due to a violent windstorm, Lisa and others want to save the whale. However, after the whale dies, the police blow it up, and one of the large chunks of whale falls from the sky and lands straight on Moleman. The flaming piece of whale crushing Moleman is definitely more brutal than the previous death on the list, hence where we placed it. The final death from above is from the episode E Pluribus Wigum. When Homer fails to dispose of his garbage in the correct way, battery acid eats into a gas main and causes a massive explosion that destroys all of Fast Food Boulevard. This leads to a massive chunk of concrete that falls from the sky and completely crushes Moleman to death. Unlike the previous two, his entire body is crushed underneath the item instead of some or even most of his body being crushed, hence why it ranks above the previous two on our list. The next crushing death on our list is in the episode King Lear. When Moe's dad finally contacts him after many years to take over one of his businesses, Moe cautiously accepts. His siblings soon try to sabotage his beds in many different ways, one of which is an automatic bed that opens and closes. It's sabotaged by opening and closing far too much and too quickly. This causes the bed to repeatedly crush Moleman to death, leaving him pretty much a pretzel. However, it's not as gruesome as his death in Bart vs. Itchy and Scratchy. After an all-female reboot of Itchy and Scratchy comes out, Lisa uploads Bart's reaction to it to show his hypocrisy. This eventually gets shown on the show Josh.0, where we also see Moleman die. Moleman is on a treadmill going slowly when a boat comes out of nowhere and crushes him against the treadmill, leaving him as nothing but a bloody stain. But the most gruesome death of this category comes from the segment Don't Have a Cow, Mankind, from Treehouse of Horror 20. After Krusty makes burgers using tainted burger meat, the entire town is turned into zombies named Munchers. However, when Apu saves the Simpsons from the Munchers, he knocks a zombie Moleman to the ground and runs his head over with his truck. When the head is crushed underneath the tire, it sends his brain, glasses, and dentures flying out of his head. It's definitely gruesome. As we wind down from such a large category, we move on to the next one, Explosive Personality, where Moleman dies from an explosion of some kind. The less gruesome death of this category is from the episode Look Who's Coming to Criticize Dinner. When Homer becomes a food critic, he starts to anger most of the food community into attempting to murder him. They create a massive eclair known as the La Bomba that was made to kill Homer. Well, when the La Bomba is thrown, it doesn't get Homer, but instead explodes Moleman's gruel stand while he's standing behind it, and he's of course caught in the explosion, killing him. However, the more gruesome death of this category is from the segment Terror at 5.5 feet, from Treehouse of Horror 4. When a gremlin is on the side of the school bus, Bart alerts Otto. However, he instead sees Moleman driving a car known as a gremlin. This causes Otto to slam into Moleman's car, sending him into a tree, causing an explosion that then kills Moleman. This one's more gruesome due to the fact that it is a contained area he's in when he explodes instead of an open field. We now reach the penultimate category in this list, that being Disco Inferno, where Moleman dies from incineration or the like. The less gruesome death in this burning category is from Bart of Darkness. With a heat wave going through the city, Moleman walks into the heat of the day. He complains about the heat and says the sun is certainly doing its job. He then extends his glasses. This causes the sun to use his glasses like a magnifying glass that catches his shirt on fire. He simply stands defeated and doesn't take off his shirt, certainly burning to death. The more gruesome death in this category is also his first, in the episode Homer's Triple Bypass. Moleman is tasked with the job of driving Edgar Allan Poe's historic home seemingly across the country. Well, Homer accidentally slams into it, which causes Moleman to go over a cliff, while the house and car burn around him. This is more brutal because he's fully caught in the fire and it's a much more confirmed death. We finally reach the most gruesome deaths on this list, those of course being the cruel deaths. The least gruesome of these goes to There Will Be Buds. After many of the kids get seemingly injured while playing football, all the concerned mothers go to the hospital to get them treated. In the emergency room, we see Moleman impaled by a sword. He doesn't get treatment from the doctors on account of the aforementioned concerned mothers, and he likely dies from bleeding out before doctors can see him. One of Moleman's saddest deaths is next in the Springfield connection. After Marge becomes a police officer and arrests Homer for parking illegally, buying underage bullies beer, and resisting arrest, Homer eats Moleman's last meal. This leads to Moleman being walked to the execution room, where he's then executed via electric chair for unknown reasons. The next death on our list comes from Team Homer. While Mr. Burns is a little out of it, Homer obtains money for his bowling team. This leads Homer to suggest Moleman try and get money from him as well. However, Mr. Burns instead drills Moleman through the skull with an electric drill and kills him, apparently damaging or straight up destroying his brain.
Oh no, my brains.
The last assumed death on our list is in 'Tis the 15th Season. While all the townsfolk are in the center of town celebrating Christmas, Moleman shoots a flare into the sky to try and get help. Everyone ignores this as they think it's a star. However, Moleman does need help as he's trapped on a mountain. A pack of wolves then surround him, and it's quite obvious they kill and eat him because he is not seen for the rest of the episode.
Oh, thank goodness, rescue dogs.
The next death is sort of similar to the previous, and it happens in Double Double Boy in Trouble. After a series of unfortunate events that cause the family to be fed up with Bart's antics, Lenny invites them to a posh party. At said party, Bart reprograms a bunch of vacuum bots that run rampant. They find and attack Moleman, completely destroying every inch of him, except for his glasses. He's sucked up into these vacuums and is seriously dead. It's just slightly outclassed by one kill. Moleman's most gruesome death in the series happens in the segment The Ned Zone from Treehouse of Horror 15. When Ned Flanders gets the ability to see the death of someone by touching them, he touches poor Moleman, seeing him getting eaten alive by alligators. This then quickly comes true when he falls into a manhole and is subsequently torn apart by said alligators. There's no question that this is the most gruesome death because we see them tear him apart. We guess it's true what they say, no one is gay for Moleman except death. He's died in plenty of gruesome ways, but which is your favorite? But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking. And be sure to check out our Simpsons Good to Evil. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our most gruesome playlist, where we break down the most gruesome moments in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.